Tell me, darling, could we run away? We could hide away by the cactus desert blue. I can see it just a mile away from this crowded place. I could lay there next to you.
Friends, welcome back to another episode of our channel, Best Freaking Friends Forever. So we're continuing with our 4th of July celebration movies. And today we are doing Air Force One. So it was released on July 25th of 1997. Its budget was $85 million. Opening weekend, it only made 37, well, not only, but it made $37 million, which with today's inflation would be $62 million. In the US, it grossed $173 million, which with inflation would be $290 million. And then worldwide, it grossed $315 million, which with inflation would be $528 million. So not too shabby. Film Entertainment Magazine's websites and commentators have conducted public polls during real presidential elections to choose from fictional movie president Americans would like to see in office. Harrison Ford as President James Marshall has won every election. Bill Pullman as President Thomas Whitmore in Independence Day commonly finishes second. And the infighting over the correct presidential line of succession was inspired by the real-world conflict after President Ronald Reagan's assassination attempt. His Secretary of State, Alexander Haig, H-A-I-G, I'm not sure how you pronounce that, insisted that he was in control of the government while Reagan was in surgery, attempting to bypass the vice president, which, I mean, I don't know how he would have ever thought that would, unless they didn't have that back then, but there's a clear line of succession now. I mean, it's president, vice president, secretary, or is the speaker of the House is next.
They had some conflict in this movie about it, though, didn't he? Because they didn't know where he was. It was all limbo. They didn't know if he was. But
even then, like even at the end, he went around trying to get all of the cabinet that was left on the plane to sign this, saying that they needed to have someone else in charge because he was not in the right mind. His family was they had his family, blah, 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 that he couldn't make the decisions. And Glenn Close wouldn't sign it. And then at the end, I love at the end how she tears it up.
The actual Air Force didn't have an escape pod before this movie.
Nope.
And which makes you wonder why they never thought of that. Like, it took a movie, some producers to think, oh, let's probably put an escape pod in there. Makes you wonder why they never even thought of something like that. And something else I noticed was it only had one seat in it. Now, don't you think that when they would make the president escape, like in reality, if the president had to escape, don't you think that they would have 2 seats, at least 2, because one for him and one for a bodyguard?
Yeah, because I wondered that too when the pod landed. I'm like, holy moly, like he's been by himself for who knows how long now, by the time they actually got the pod and found the pod, because it seemed like it was quite a bit of, too much time to me when you've got the president's pod falling and you're not right on top of him.
Because then you have to think too, his family was with him. There was no room for, could probably squeeze in there really tightly, but there was no room for his family either to go with him.
They weren't worried. They wanted him off. Like, they kind of shoved him in and they were like, he's like, my family. And they're like, that sucks as the president, because you're like, okay, you are commander-in-chief. Like, you've got so many other people that you're in charge of. Like, if you die, that's a big problem for a lot of people.
Bill Clinton was in office during this movie.
Yeah, they would not let Wolfgang Peterson, which was the director, they wouldn't let him have access to Air Force One. And so a telephone, apparently Harrison Ford called, and that changed that.
See Air Force One in this, we see the plane in this one and how they depicted it. And then we see it in Independence Day too, and totally different planes. Totally different in how they're set up. I feel like this plane in this movie is like a big, apartment, basically, like a big.
Well, yeah, because it's got a staff room. It's got like a round table or like a.
Well, his office.
Yeah.
Like, it's a nice size office.
Yep, for everybody to meet around. He's got a room that he watches his game in. Well, I guess one day when they were filming, 2 F-A-18 fighters appeared and radioed in surprise report that the plane they'd asked to identify was Air Force One, and there was bullet holes in it, and they were actually decals. So the Air Traffic Control Center in Los Angeles knew about the filming, and they were able to set them straight. But can you imagine, like, being up there and be like, oh my God, it's Air Force One and it's got bullet holes in it?
Right?
Well, and I thought it was interesting too, because after they rescue him, the pilot says Liberty 24 is changing call signs. It's now Liberty 24 is now called Air Force One, when technically any Air Force aircraft carrying the president is Air Force One. The helicopter that President flies in is Marine One, I guess, because the Marine Corps is in charge of the aircraft. If the president flies on a Navy aircraft, it would be Navy One. Since the Air Force maintains the president's plane, it is designated Air Force One. If the president is in a civilian aircraft, its call sign would be Executive One. And then I guess the fight scenes between Harrison Ford and Gary Oldman were actually hitting each other during them, which that's kind of interesting. I'll tell you what, Gary Oldman played a good bad guy in this one.
Well, I think Harrison Ford does a lot of that, though, in his movies, like, does a lot of his own stunts.
Mm-hmm. Well, he's just recently been hurt doing the new Indiana Jones movie. He hurt his shoulder recently. Like, that was within, like, the last week. He actually got injured on set.
He's not a spring chicken. He's older. He needs to take it easy. He was paid $20 million to do this movie. Mm-hmm. And what was the budget again?
It was 85. I didn't mind it. I like Harrison Ford. I like his way of acting. I like how he can be serious, but at the same time, he gets one-liner. I mean, this had a good one-liner too, like "Get off my plane," as he's shoving him out the door with the parachute.
Yeah, that's a crazy scene, isn't it?
And he's like, "Get off my plane."
Yeah, he like pulls that thing around his neck, and that's one way to take a man out. Well, it was really neat whenever he finally was able to get use that cell phone and call into the White House and get in the way he did, and he put the phone in his pocket and was telling him what all needed to be done.
Well, and his relationship with his vice president, pretty cool. And you could tell she legit, wanted him safe, and she was willing to do anything to get him safe. And she had a lot of pushback too. Like, she had that guy in her ear telling her she should do this, she should do that, like trying to get her to sign the papers, and thank God she didn't. Well, and that's the thing. I guess there was a cliche moment because she was the last minute casting, and they, in one scene, I guess when they capture him or whatever, they wanted her to cry and break down. And she's like, "I'm not doing it." She's like, "Because that's so cliche that you would have a woman break down in a moment like that."
Yeah, well, good for her.
Yeah, I mean, because I think that just giving in to everybody. Kind of an action-packed movie, and it does make you think again, what would you do if that really did happen?
Well, they kept it secret from the public, too. They kept it secret for so long because what was it? It got into the media that the plane went down. Mm-hmm. And so they had to come out and set them straight and go, well, actually, it's being held hostage. There was no transparency for a while on it. These bad guys were ruthless, though. I mean, they were legit killing people. What was it? Every hour they were killing somebody?
Well, then the way they killed the one woman with her on the phone, and they counted to 10, and he wouldn't show himself because they told him to show himself in 10 seconds or they would kill her, and he didn't because he knew he couldn't give himself up. I don't know how someone would live with that, knowing that you could have saved someone, but at the same time giving yourself up and knowing that that's exactly what they want, and who knows what they'll do once they've gotten you. He was in a no-win situation with that. Well, and then to be betrayed at the end by one of the Secret Service members, I think, right? Wasn't it a Secret Service member?
At the very end. Pretty cool how they got him from one plane to the next.
Yeah, because I remember that being a pretty cool scene to watch when I first watched it, because I mean, you'd never seen anything like that. I wonder if that's really how they would do it.
Yeah.
Well, and again, the guy that betrays them, he gets his, because doesn't he blow up with the plane? I don't think I'd want to be president just because I don't think I'd want to sacrifice my freedom well, not necessarily freedom, but like just
you are.
I mean, you kind of are in your privacy and
yeah. Oh, I mean, you really have to do what they say. I mean, because they have to protect you. That's the number one goal. Oh, I remember one time Michelle Obama was in an interview and they said, like, what's one thing that, like, you miss from regular life? And she said, driving with the window down. She said, whenever you're in those cars, she said, you never get to drive with the window down. Oh, this movie has a body count of 48. Oh, something I saw about the parachutes is that it was actually really dangerous to jump like they did, because it was at nighttime, and so there's no way to see any like electric lines, trees, so they could get themselves in a pickle.
Oh, I'd say I never thought about that. Well, then you didn't know where you were over. Were you over water? Mm-hmm. Were you over land? Like what were you over, and could you see?
Yeah. So they were trying to say it might have been safer to just stay on the plane. I'm like, I don't know though. They were killing people every hour. That was Air Force One with Harrison Ford. Let us know what you think of this movie down below. It wasn't really my favorite. There's other presidential movies that I liked a lot better than this one. I don't know. I remember watching it when I was younger. Haven't seen it in a long time. I don't know. Did you like it?
I did.
Well,
but
yeah, you're Harrison. Yeah. Shelley's a sucker for Han Solo.
I am.
But let us know down below what you think. We would love to hear from you. Please like, share, and subscribe. Nothing crazy will happen when you subscribe. It just means you like our channel. Really, that's all it really is, and that you want to keep up to date on what we're talking about. So definitely let us know all of that. We'd love to hear from you. And until next time, I am Tiffany. This is my BFFF Shelley. Join us next time, friends, for another great episode.